Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Today's Italy topic is going to be about food, diet, and grocery stores in Italy. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's say you're someone who's never been to Italy before and you're from the West, for example. When you hear about Italian food, whether it's on TV or the internet or you just hear people talking about it, it usually has a very positive stigma attached to it. And that's absolutely correct. In a lot of ways, Italian food is the best food that you can find anywhere in the world. But I'll be completely honest with you, if you're going to Italy for the first time, there are going to be some things that you love about Italian food, but also some things that you hate about it. So be prepared for that. Okay, so the first thing that you should be warned about before going to Italy concerning food is that the portions are a lot smaller. This is actually a very good thing, as Italy has a much lower obesity rate than America and Canada, and this can be a huge change for some people, but it will be better for you in the end. You will probably lose some weight if you are eating healthy there, and you won't be able to find large containers like you do here in the West, like bottles of pop or milk. You know, it's usually going to be in smaller bottles, smaller containers, so just be prepared for that. But don't be too thrown off by this because it is a very positive thing. If you look at someone like me, for example, who's a little bit overweight and who has definitely done a lot of overeating in his time, going there was great for me because health-wise it was just very beneficial. Okay, so let's say that you're a tourist who is going to Italy for the first time. You just landed there, you just got off your plane, you just checked into your hotel, and you're starving. You could either go to a restaurant, you could go to a pizzeria, you could do, many things, but the cheapest option for you, of course, is to go to a grocery store and buy something to make. But this is where it's going to get a little bit confusing because in Italy, they're not going to have as many pre-prepared meals as you might find here in the West, They're not going to have pre-made sandwiches, those aren't as common. They're not going to have frozen dinners. You will very rarely find frozen pizzas, so going there for the first time can be a little bit strange when you're looking for something to cook. And on top of that, you're probably not going to have an oven or any kind of cooking supplies in your hotel. So what happens to a lot of foreigners in this situation is they will go to the grocery store and buy the same things every day and end up eating the same things every day, which is exactly what I did before I knew any better. So basically what I would do is I would leave my hotel room, I would walk to the closest Carrefour, which is a grocery store over there. I would walk in there, buy some bread, some cheese, and some prosciutto. I would take that stuff back to my hotel room, I would sit on the floor, pull out my credit card, lay out some brochures, use the credit card to spread the cheese on the bread, put the prosciutto on top of that, and then eat that as like a sandwich. And I would eat that every day for like 2 weeks. It was awful. Okay, so basically I had two things that were preventing me from having good healthy meals every day. And that's that I was being too cheap and that I was afraid to experiment and try new things. And this happens to a lot of foreigners who go there. They will generally find one thing that works and then just keep on buying the same thing because they don't actually know what else to buy. But you have to realize that when you're in Italy, food is probably going to be a bit more expensive than where you're coming from, east or west. And this is actually for a fair reason. Most of the food that you will find in grocery stores or outdoor markets is very fresh food, and it is usually locally sourced. So there's not going to be all of the MSG and like preservatives and all those kinds of things that you find in cheap Western food. And this is of course a very good thing. So yeah, don't be afraid to spend a bit more money on food, and keep in mind that you don't have to buy as much food because you're now living in a country where people don't eat as much, and this is of course a very good thing. I noticed almost right away when I was there that not only the food that I was eating, but the smaller portions made me feel so much better than what I would typically do when I was back home. I would just overeat, and I would eat very unhealthy foods. So that's something that you're going to notice. You might have to spend a bit more on items, but you will end up actually probably spending less because you're not buying as much food. Okay, so most commonly what most Italians will eat in a day is usually 3 meals like we do in the West. For breakfast, they won't usually eat as much as we do in the West. They will usually have some coffee, which is commonly espresso coffee over there. They will have a cookie or a biscuit or some toast, and that's usually about it. They won't have eggs, they won't have bacon, they won't have sausage or anything like that. And then for lunch, they will typically have pasta and some other kind of entree, like whether this be a meat or fish or something like that. And also, when you're in Italy, the table culture might be a little bit different. And I mean that as in a large portion of people in the West typically don't eat at a table with their family. They will usually eat over the sink or just like sitting on the couch, watching TV. This doesn't really happen in Italy. Eating at the table is much more important over there. And that's actually a huge part of the family culture over there, They will always sit at the table for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And they will typically have different courses as well. Like the first course is going to be like some bread with oil, and then the next course is going to be the pasta, and then the next course is going to be the meat or the fish. So that's usually how it works. For supper, it's usually not going to be pasta. If it is, then pasta is probably going to be the only dish, and it's probably going to have something in the sauce, like meats or mushrooms or something to make it special. Something else that's different is that people over there generally eat at different times than we do here in the West. For most people here in America, we eat breakfast at around 6, from 6 to 8. That's usually the that's usually the time bracket that people will eat breakfast. But in Italy, people eat breakfast a bit later. Not everybody, but most people over there, they will wake up a bit later. That's just how the culture is. They'll have breakfast anywhere from 9:30, to 10:30 in that time bracket. And then for lunch, they will usually eat, sometimes as late as 2, and then dinner sometimes as late as 10. So just keep that in mind. Your eating schedule is going to change, and concerning eating later in the day, I actually think that is for health reasons too. I think that the Italians are actually onto something with this, and there's a reason that they do it, and that is when you eat later in the day, like when you eat your meals later, that's much better for digestion, it's better for metabolism, and it has all these great health benefits. So don't be too thrown off by this. Just like the smaller portions, this is something that is actually going to be better for you in the long run, and you'll be much happier because of it. So now let's talk about digestion and how your body is going to adjust to your new diet if you're coming from the West. There are pretty much 2 different kinds of food groups that they have in Italy. Diet types, which is the Mediterranean diet, and the slightly different diet that they have up north, the part of Italy that's inland, but it's all pretty much the same, and most of it is very healthy. The Mediterranean diet consists of like fish, olive oil, nuts, vegetables, fruits, all that kind of stuff, and really no foods that are going to be too heavy or hard to digest. So don't expect to have any stomach aches or stomach upsets or vomiting or anything like this, like you might have if you were going to China, for example. The food is not very intense, and while there are many spices used in Italian food, it's usually not spicy, and most of the spices are derived from leaves, and they're all very mild, such as oregano or basil. Now let's talk about what people drink in Italy. Not only alcohol, but also water and all that stuff. You might be wondering, what do the Italian people usually drink? And the answer to that is a lot of wine, usually with food, usually not in excess. Water, Perrier, which is a carbonated water that they drink over there. It's like a mineral water. Coca-Cola is very popular over there, and a few other soft drinks like Fanta, but the most common soft drink that you're going to see people drinking over there is Coca-Cola. And that's pretty much what you can expect. There is of course milk over there, but that's usually drinking with coffee. People usually don't drink a big glass of milk like we do here in America. They'll usually have water, Coca-Cola, or wine. Yes, that's right. People over there do not get as drunk as we do here in the West. Most people, if they ever do get drunk, they won't get as extremely drunk as we do, here in the West. And this is, a good thing. That means it's much safer to go out at night. You're not going to run into as many alcohol-related crimes, and car accidents caused from alcohol are also much lower. And because of this, the legal drinking age is much lower. I think it's 16 or something like that. So it's definitely a much safer place to be when it comes to alcohol. When you're eating Italian food and drinking lots of wine, you won't have to use the restroom as often. Now I'm just going to quickly talk about restrooms, going to the restroom and how this food digests, all that kind of stuff. Basically, I'll put it short and simple, you won't have to use the restroom as much when you're living in Italy. Because of all the wine and the healthy foods that you're eating, it's just not going to happen as much, and you're not going to have all of those digestive problems that you have here in the West. So this is a very good thing, and of course be prepared when you're going to the restroom that they will have squat toilets over there sometimes. Not very common to see those, but it has happened to me a few times. So do educate yourself on how to use those and how to use all the other gadgets and gizmos that they have in their restrooms over there. Italian food. If you are somebody who's planning to go there long term and live there, you are probably going to want to cook for yourself, and don't be too intimidated by this. Most Italian meals are not that difficult to make, and you will be eating mostly pasta with various kinds of sauces. All very easy to make, all very easy to learn. The only difficult cooking that you will learn how to do is seafood dishes. It's a bit more complicated when you get into the seafood. You have to boil things for a certain time, you have to use certain spices, there's all kinds of fancy amounts. But most of it is just... Alright guys, well that's pretty much it for this video. Overall, be prepared to be very satisfied with Italian food, and know that you won't be disappointed, and be prepared for an adventure, as Italian food is really one of the main parts of the culture over there. So you'll definitely enjoy yourself. Don't be worried about this at all. It's going to change your life, really. It's going to have a positive effect on your life. And yeah, that's pretty much all that I have to say about Italian food. If you do like these videos and you want to see more, give it a like and subscribe so you know when I make new videos. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. And that's absolutely true. There is a lot of Italian food that's... This is the one. And that's absolutely correct. Lots of people think that Italian food is the best food that you can get anywhere in the world. And that's... you. This is the one. You're starving, so you decide to go to a restaurant. Basically have that as like a sandwich for almost every single meal, with the exception of, what do I actually say here? Every day, digestion and all those kinds of. So don't be through not. So don't be too culture where they eat lots of sugars and salts and